Plaza TV. I am Apek Mulay and I'm having a discussion with Professor Ravi Batra from Southern Methodist University, Dallas about the latest economic and political developments that are happening post-election of President-elect Donald Trump. And we had last two segments, we have covered some of his policies. In this segment, I would like to really touch base with Professor Batra about what he said in last segment about government of America, the government policies making the rich richer. This is something eye-opening. In a democratically elected society, the government makes the rich richer. So he has discussed about in his book, End Unemployment Now. I would recommend the viewers to please purchase your copy and try to understand it. But still, I would like to hear from Professor Batra, when you say the government policies make the rich richer, please explain it to our viewers. You know, how does this happen? And if this is happening, this is something. It's a failure of democracy. That you say the government.
See, the government. I have shown, as I said earlier, 95% of the government budget deficit.
Okay.
95% of that goes into the pockets of the very rich.
Okay.
And the poor just get 5% benefits, but they are paying 1/3 of the tax revenue comes, or maybe more, comes from the very poor. They get 5% of the benefit, pay 1/3 of the tax, 1/3 of the tax to the government. So the government policy makes the poor poorer and the rich the richer. And see how it goes. What happens? First of all, let's look at history. During the 1940s, the United States, the U.S. government had huge budget deficits to fight Hitler,
to
fight that war, Second World War.
Yeah.
And we find that the rate of profit was around 18% of equity capital.
Okay.
Very high, incredibly high. In other words, it's like earning 18% return on your savings, on your investment. It's incredibly high.
Yeah.
That was 18%. And we know that the federal government had a huge budget deficit.
Okay.
Now, since about 2007 or 8, the budget deficits had jumped even more.
Yeah.
It's even bigger now.
Yeah.
And I read an article in New York Times, and I cited that article in the book, which shows that under President Obama, the rate of profit is at its all-time high in history.
Okay.
So the same thing that happened in the 1940s is happening now. And what's the common denominator? Huge budget deficit. And that history supports my viewpoint that the government money, vast majority of that government money goes into the pockets of the rich. Now, and there is another way in which the Federal Reserve helps the rich.
Oh yeah, Central Bank of America helps the rich. Okay.
As I said earlier, when productivity rises faster than wages, supply grows faster than demand, there is overproduction and layoffs occur, poverty rises. Now, if this overproduction keeps occurring, then the rich people, their profits will fall.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Right, it's true.
Because they need people to buy this.
You cannot buy. People will not buy.
So what does the Federal Reserve do? They cut interest rates sharply so that the poor people borrow money.
Interesting. Yeah.
They borrow money and buy these goods produced by the richest people. So the rich people get their revenue. They get their revenue because they sell out everything. But productivity is rising, wages are not, so that means the entire fruit of productivity goes into the pockets of the rich with the help of the government money.
So you mean to say that not just the Central Bank of America, even the European Central Bank is negative interest rate.
Oh yeah.
So
they're all doing
even governments, the central banks around the world, I'm seeing they're cutting down the interest rate. So that is to lure the people into borrowing. So around the world, we are having this problem that the system is rigged in such a way that the rich just keep getting richer and richer.
And everybody knows, and the government is helping them. And not only that, these banks, they lend money to the poor and the middle class.
Right.
They are getting money free from Federal Reserve, nearly around 0%, maybe 0.25%, 0.5%,
Right.
but they're charging 15 to 20%
On my
interest
credit
rate from the
cards,
poor and the
credit
middle
cards.
class.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. That's
So
true.
their return on
investments is such a huge. Yeah, yeah.
And then how do we know it's huge? Well, the CEO of one bank makes 100 million a year.
Yeah.
And he complains, I did not get much raise this year. I didn't have any bonus. He complains about it.
In fact, I remember when we had the big bailouts of the banks after the financial crisis, there were golden toilets made for one of the bankers, and this is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's just ridiculous.
So it's the government which is making them rich, and then the same government complains. I've heard President Obama complain a lot, and Mrs. Clinton complained about it in her debates with Mr. Trump. She says, we don't know how the rich are getting richer. Well, this is the reason you are making them rich.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And you don't even know about it.
So now coming back to President-elect Trump and his policy, now we have said all those problems. How is Trumponomics going to fix these problems? Or what do you see Trumponomics doing now to fix them?
For Trumponomics to really work, I have offered short-term some reforms in the which will work right away.
Now, in your book, okay.
In this book, Under Unemployment Now. And by the way, the main title is how to eliminate joblessness,
debt, and poverty.
Despite
in bold words, despite Congress. So Mr. Trump does not need his Republican and Democratic friends. He can still use his Twitter to get his
Twitter
message
is enough.
Twitter is enough.
Twitter is enough for him.
Twitter is enough for President-elect Trump. President Trump, you're hearing me, please buy this book or get this book and please get this policies implemented. You don't need your friends from the other parties, and you can get the work done from Americans. Please do read this book.
All right. So what I've shown in, if the coming president does certain things, he or she, well, now it's he can cut poverty in half in America. In half in just 1 week.
1 week.
1 week is
President-elect Trump, 1 week you can cut poverty in America in half. Isn't that a good way to put it on Twitter? It's going to get million more likes, I'm sure. Please tweet it. 1 week solution to poverty.
This is what you do.
Okay.
Without the help of Congress. A law was passed by Congress in 1987.
All right.
The year of the greatest stock market crash. They were panicking, so they passed a law. They said that FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, can open its own bank.
Okay.
The banks were failing. So they said, the FDIC can make those banks solvent by combining them together and opening its own bank. And so this is what the FDIC has been doing since 1987. Whenever a bank fails, they invest money in it, but then they sell it back to a very large bank.
Right, to make a profit.
No, not for them. The profit goes to the large bank. They have put money in.
Right. So people's money goes in,
and then they make the profit. That's right.
So it's kind of socialism.
No, corporate socialism.
Corporate socialism.
That's why I said the government is making the rich richer.
Okay.
So they have been making these insolvent banks, failed banks, solvent by putting money, and then they sell it back to a very big bank.
Okay.
And then the big bank makes the profit. What I've suggested is this. Make the bank, this bankrupt bank solvent, keep it open for 3 years. That's what the law says. Up to 3 years, the insolvent or the failed bank can remain open. Let's call it the FDIC bank. The bank that the FDIC took over, made it solvent. Let's call it the FDIC bank. Once this bank has become solvent, then the FDIC bank can also borrow money at nearly 0% rate from the Federal Reserve.
Right, right. Like other banks.
Like other banks.
Yeah.
Then just charge 5% interest rate on credit card loans, which are such a huge burden on the poor and the middle class.
That's true.
The poor and the middle class are paying 15 to 20% interest on those loans.
Right.
If you charge them just 5%, first of all, their debt burden will sink, will simply almost vanish.
Very true.
So that will raise their living standard right away.
Yeah, from 15% it comes to 5%, that's 10%.
10% benefit
in the pocket. It'll be in the pocket.
So if you have a debt of $10,000,
10% of that.
10% of that is $1,000. Your income goes up by $1,000 right away.
Very right.
Which is,
And you
for
can
the
use
poor-
it from productive use, some buying some other good
Well,
things.
that's what I'm coming
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Which is a huge help to a poor person. For the rich
Exactly.
person, $1,000 means nothing.
Right.
But somebody who can't even put food on the table
Yeah.
for the entire family,
Yeah.
$1,000
There's
means
a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, very true.
And this will cut poverty in half within 1 week, because it takes 3 days for the FDIC to make a failed bank solvent.
All right. Okay.
Okay, that will cut poverty in half in just 3 days, or at the most 1 week.
Uh-huh.
Then next the President Trump can do is to raise interest rate for the retirees.
Okay. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
retirees are getting half
Hammered
a
by
percent,
that, yeah.
being hammered by this.
Yeah.
So, and I'm suggested the government borrows money, long-term money at 3%, 3.5% rate. Why not get that rate to the CDs of retirees, raise their earnings from just 0.5% to 3.5%, and that will raise
Means,
their...
do you mean to say the benchmark interest rate should go up, or how can just the
No,
retirees?
just the bonds. The government sells bonds to the retirees
Okay. At a higher rate.
at higher rate, just 5% CD, they
Right,
give them 3.5%.
Makes sense.
Whereas
Makes
that
sense.
5% CD from the bank will get them 0.5%.
Yeah.
So that will help the retiree.
Okay.
Third, eliminate the trade deficit with China and many other countries. Now, Mr. Trump is talking about imposing tariffs. That will certainly do that, but tariffs are not popular nowadays. Tariffs will invite trade warfare.
Yeah.
So what the country can do is to manipulate the dollar. China manipulates its own currency. Let's manipulate the dollar. And by manipulating the dollar, we can encourage our exports and raising exports without reducing imports.
Right.
See, this policy...
President Trump, these are some brilliant solutions. You have been complaining about China as a currency manager. Do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's show China that we also can do what you can do.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
manipulate our currency.
Right.
That's the way to do it.
Exactly. We manipulate our currency also, whether we have negotiations with other countries or not. Trade negotiations suffer, or they could take a long time. These
Yeah,
trade
definitely.
negotiations. And people would suffer in the process.
Yeah.
Just manipulate the currency the way other countries do to
Right.
promote their exports. Europe is doing it. They
Europe also is doing
negative.
it.
They have negative interest
Interest
rates
rates,
to
yeah.
bring the euro down.
Right. Yeah.
China is bringing yuan down.
In fact, negative interest rates are hurting the consumers in
Oh,
Europe.
yeah.
they are ignoring those things.
Yeah,
It's hurting the economy.
Everything for the rich.
Everything for the rich.
Right.
So,
So let's manipulate our currency, and we can eliminate our trade deficits with all these countries by increasing our exports sharply.
Right.
That will revive manufacturing, and people would have higher wages.
you know, one good thing that I foresee from your trade policy that you're prescribing is that when each country holds other countries' debt, sovereign debt, you can eliminate wars from this world.
Right.
No one will invade other country because you own their debt. You see, that's a brilliant solution to get rid of your wars.
Yeah.
So President Trump, you can get along with all countries in the world, and you can have a fantastic recovery of our economy. These are some brilliant solutions that Professor Batra has offered in End Unemployment Now. Please do read this book, and I hope that your followers at least would remind you that this solution has some brilliant ideas for you, and I hope that these ideas would benefit the entire and will make you a president who has been elected, who has bring about, you will become as famous, I believe, like FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was the president during the Depression that really helped America, and I believe it's a time that we are in similar situation, and we do need some bright ideas. And since you yourself as a successful businessman, you know that a business needs not just producers but also consumers, and we have to regenerate our consumer purchasing power. So we'll have more discussion with Professor Batra in the final segment of this interview, and please stay tuned and listen what Professor Batra has to say. Thank you so much, Professor Batra, for your time, and we have a commercial break.
Okay.
So thank you.
Fine.